Great. So I'm just going to talk a little bit today about the ways that Green Mountain Transit is using technology to help build ridership. Mostly some of this started before COVID, but mostly this is as we emerge from COVID, what are we doing to build confidence and build ridership? So just going to give a brief overview of Green Mountain Transit, who we are, what we were seeing during COVID, what we're doing post-COVID, and then we have some additional strategies that we're using in other parts of our service area. So this is the GMT service area in Vermont. This map makes it look fairly small, but we really serve the whole northwest portion of the state. We have service in 5 regions, including 1 big urban service in the Burlington area, and then 4 smaller rural services. We are considered a small urban service. In Burlington, we provide about 2.3 million boardings per year, and just about 400,000 in our rural service. We offer lots of traditional services. Everybody who is familiar with transit probably understands what all these are. So in our urban system, we offer regular fixed route service. We have contracted paratransit service. We have commuter, interregional and regional commuter services. So some small locals and then some cross-regional service. Deviated fixed route service, we operate in our in our rural service area. We don't have a contracted paratransit provider there, and so we used our fixed route service to deviate and serve those passengers. And then we have demand response services, paratransit, Medicaid, NEMT services, and the state of Vermont has an elders and disabled program, which is, probably other transit providers have this as well. It's a grant funded service that uses funds to enhance the mobility for seniors. So during COVID, we started to notice a few things. We had launched transit app, and we have a downtown core, a transit center in downtown Burlington. And all of our local service originates there. And we started to realize that once our local service was approaching the transit center, once it hit about a quarter mile away, it was causing confusion with bus assignment issue. And so, passengers downstream were getting real-time predictions that were all over the map and not predictable. In the PM, we have all of our commuter services that leave roughly at the same time on the same pulse. And many of them arrive at our medical center around the same time. And the same sort of assignment issue was happening in the PM for those folks. And we had ghost buses traveling around the system where, passengers weren't quite sure. They saw a bus coming toward them, and then all of a sudden that bus sort of disappeared off the service. Some of this discussion started before COVID, but the pandemic really allowed us to focus on these technology improvements so we could be prepared for when riders were coming back. So we approached Swiftly, who's one of our vendors, to discuss this assignment issue. They do a lot of work for us. They integrate with Transit app. And so what they did was they invited us to sit on a customer council to test a module that they call Onboard App. And what this allowed, we were one of the first agencies on this customer council. It really gave us a seat at the table. It allowed us to have a small sample size in our urban system where we installed tablets and this module, and we allowed drivers to log in, log out, and test this. And then we got to sit on a weekly meeting with Swiftly and discuss what was working and what wasn't. Internally, it allowed lots of different departments at GMT to interact and figure out, how this module was benefiting drivers, passengers, and it's really sort of started to make us think differently about the way that we operate. The other benefit is it really enabled our bus operators to see what passengers were seeing. They had the same information. They had the same information as the administrative staff, the planning department, which gave some confidence to them, that when they're out operating in the system that, folks are seeing what they're doing and everybody's sort of on the same page. So there's no confusion about when that bus is arriving. And obviously the goal of the project was to make sure that our passengers were receiving the most accurate information. And so you can see the little moving clock down in the corner. That's what our drivers are seeing. So it gives them a countdown clock. At each of their time points, it tells them if they're running on time, if they're running late, and it really improves that on-time performance for us. We were seeing a trend of early departures prior to implementing onboard app. And so this really, it's a visual cue for our drivers to say, okay, I need to sit here for just a moment until it's time for me to leave this stop to ensure that they're not departing early. And it has down to the second GPS updates, and it shows high fidelity vehicle assignment. So we can rest assured that, you know, the real-time information going to our passengers is accurate. So this just shows our on-time performance trends. The light gray line on the bottom is our vehicle trends for buses that did not have onboard apps, so they were logged out. And you can see the on-time performance was pretty poor. And then the blue line shows the 5 buses that were logged into this Swiftly module. And you can see that the buses that were logged in, seeing that visual cue, were experiencing much better on-time performance. Similarly, we were tracking the early departures. And so the gray line is buses that did not have the module, and the blue line is buses that did. And so you can see the instances of early departures decreased significantly. So as we emerge from COVID, we're doing a number of things to sort of improve the passenger experience. We're very lucky that we have support of the state of Vermont. All the transit agencies in the state have transit app. We're all connected. You know, we're all sort of experiencing the same upgrades and improvements together. So no matter where somebody is traveling in any region of the state, the information that they're seeing is accurate. So we have experienced, you know, the app experience improved. As mentioned, we've integrated real-time maps on our website. So when you go to our homepage, you can see in real time where the bus is on a route. We have Transit TV, which is a departure board at our main transit center. HTML schedules, which I'm sure a lot of people are doing at this point, but Green Mountain Transit did not have them. And for years, we've been hearing from passengers that downloading a PDF to their phone is a burden. And so we have, this has given us the opportunity to switch to HTML schedules. And then in one of our rural systems, we recently launched a microtransit on-demand system. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. So another thing that we have been working on with Transit app is crowding information. So if you're familiar with Transit app, there is a Go feature. And when you tap the Go button, this little screen pops up that says how crowded is the vehicle. We don't have APCs on board our buses, so this is pretty much the only way that we can provide crowding information for passengers. So how is, you know, mobility as a service changing transit for us? So the definition that I use for mobility as a service is a concept envisioning integrated mobility where travelers can access multiple transportation modes over a single digital interface. And so you can see here, there's, you know, our bike share, local bike share, our transit service, our carpool service. So we have been, we've had an expansion of software that is incorporating local modes of, you know, all modes of local transportation. We integrated our reservation and payment system. We have a mobile ticketing provider. We've since brought that provider on board as well. So in Transit app, you're able to also pay for your fare. And so the goal of all of this is to simplify trip planning and to give passengers the confidence to use a bus system without actually having to learn how to read a big clunky schedule or things like that. So they're able to use this technology to you know, use all of our services. So MyRide by GMT is a microtransit service that we launched in early January in a large COVID surge in that region. So we didn't have high hopes for the beginning of this service, but it's actually exceeded all of our expectations. And the ridership has built back to a pre-launch level, which we weren't expecting so soon. When you're using the MyRide app, it's similar to other ride sharing apps where you put in your destination, your location. It gives you proposals and gives you whatever option sort of fits within your parameters. And then when the bus is on its way to you, it gives some information about our vehicle. So it tells you what vehicle is coming, who that driver is, and it gives some confidence that as this vehicle is approaching you, because we are using our fleet, our bus fleet. So we're using our small transit buses to provide this service. So it gives you some confidence that as that bus is approaching you, that you are getting on the right vehicle. So what's up next for us? The state of Vermont has launched 14 feasibility studies to look at microtransit projects throughout the state. Green Mountain Transit is going to be studying 2 additional parts of our service area. We have been working with Swiftly on additional customer councils so we can look at improving the technology further. We are working on a customer council right now that allows us to do some behind the scenes stop closures and detour information. We, as I said, integrating with our mobile ticketing vendor. Currently, the entire state of Vermont is fare free, and we will be through June of 2022, but we anticipate at some point that fares will return. And so we've been working with our mobile ticketing vendor to make sure that's on track. And then we're looking at local providers in the state. So we do have a local car share. We have an e-bike fleet, especially in Burlington. It's pretty popular and it's pretty large. And so we're working with those local providers to try to integrate. So, all of our apps can show how you can use this multimodal solution and where can you find a bike if you just get off the bus or things like that. So, and as I said, the state of Vermont is really interested in integrating all of the technology for all of the providers in the state. And so we've been working with them. They have some trip planning on the state of Vermont site. And so they use a service called Agile Mile via who we use for our microtransit project. Are integrating, and so folks using our microtransit service can see regular fixed route service in the same area and really have those options. So this is just an example of that integration that we're working on with them. And so I was at the tail end of the last session and I heard a little bit about the API conversation that was happening. And so I put this example in here. The bus on the left is really, the traditional CAD AVL vendor. You have one vendor, proprietary information. They're typically not open with their data versus the bus on the right. So, we're working with providers and groups that will come in, will speak to our tech partners, and really have that open transit ecosystem and that technology ecosystem in place. And then, we're working on enabling dynamic services. So as I said, we're on a different customer council with Swiftly, which allows us in the planning department to go in and make a quick change on the computer. And then we have confidence that that change has gone out to our passengers. Our drivers are seeing it on board the bus on their tablets. All of our drivers now have tablets on board the bus. So we have done a full launch of onboard app. And then any transit signal priority is also connected to that technology. So if there's a detour or something that's affecting that, it would shoot out to that as well. And so, what makes Swiftly's passenger information different? It's really rider focused and data informed and tested. And so, we have used when we're looking at the rider, we nearly eliminated, and most cases have eliminated, the ghost bus issue. Our auto assigner is working very well now that we have the full onboard app launched. It's updating with every GPS ping, and it's optimized to make sure that our drivers are not leaving stops early, and that passengers are seeing those, they're not having mixed up predictions because of that. We are analyzing lots of records and real-time data. Swiftly is integrating multiple vehicle feeds for redundancy, and they're looking at the historical data to optimize the intervals. And then, you know, we're testing it all the time. So we are evaluating the prediction accuracies all the time. We do have our supervisors in the field who are also looking at this all the time. So it's allowing us, our continued work with Swiftly is really allowing us to improve the environment quite a bit. So the last slide I have is just our takeaways. So, you know, by testing and utilizing all these different technology platforms, it's really allowed the Green Mountain Transit staff to think a lot more creatively about how we're interacting, how we're doing business internally, but also how we're interacting and communicating to our passengers. We've learned quite a bit about, you know, our passenger needs, and when something is not working, like most agencies, we hear about it right away. And so it's allowed us to make quick changes, and it's giving us a lot greater transparency, which is always a goal. And then, you know, we've already been using our on-time performance data and the early departure data to inform schedule changes. So we've identified places in our system where we've built too much time or not enough time into the schedule, and it's allowed us in our next passenger schedule to make those appropriate changes and to better, you know, to make our system more efficient. So that's what I have.
Okay, great. It was nice to hear something from the real world, and also the issues that you have been facing. A bus leaving early is a no-go, and it's nice that technology can help the drivers. In reality, people hate that the bus is standing still. You just, when you get on the bus, you want it to go, but going early, that's not a good thing. Also, like the notion that you are very focused on open data, even in the bus, that you don't want to be locked into vendors, but have some kind of open standards. We see the same in Europe, where we have a initiative called the digital bus for the bus, if you will, so that yeah, in principle, you only get one antenna from the bus instead of 3-4 holes in the roof. So thanks a lot for this presentation. So Jamie, could you help me? Which technology of James or Sumitra would you most like to have in your portfolio? Now you've heard the presentations, and why not? I mean, you're sitting on you. Yeah, I'm asking.
Yeah. I'm super interested in anything that gives us real-time crowding information. That's really top of mind for folks right now. The contactless payment option is also really important for Green Mountain Transit. Currently, we have rear door boarding in effect, and that's the best way that we can board passengers safely and limit exposure to our drivers. So that's sort of where we're focused right now. The APC data, we don't have daily, you know, boardings and alightings by stop or any of that. We do an annual ride check, which is just a sample in time. So that's where we are sort of lagging in technology, and I think, you know, that's going to be our next our next piece of technology that I think we'll implement. It's important for us to make accurate planning decisions.